Good evening, everybody. Today is the September 6th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. I'm Travis Nam, the chair of the Planning Commission. To my left, I have Scott Woodbury, Maren Patterson, and Phil Markham. On my right, we have Lisa Milkevich and Sue Wilson and Ned Hacker for the Planning Commission. And then for staff, it looks like we've got Jim McNulty, Zach Smallwood, Jared Hall, and in the back, GL Critchfield. Welcome back. We've missed you. GL doesn't join us much anymore.
Where's the sweater vest?
We have a very robust agenda this evening, so I'm going to dive right into it. First, some housekeeping. If you're here to speak to any items this evening, we will call you up when it's time during each of those individual items. We ask that you limit your public comment to a period of 3 minutes. If you're speaking for a group of individuals, we'll give you 5 minutes. If you have cell phones on, we ask you please turn off your cell phone or silence them. If you need to take calls, please take the calls out in the hallway. Item number 1 on the formal agenda this evening is approval of the minutes from the August 16th, 2018 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion on those?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 16th with corrections we talked about in pre-meeting.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Hacker to
I'll
approve
second.
the minutes. And a second by Mr. Woodbury. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 2 is conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest with any of the items to declare this evening?
No.
Yes. I have conflict of interest on number 5.
Okay, it's noted Mrs. Wilson has a conflict of interest on number 5. I am an employee of Intermountain Healthcare, but I do not believe that it will impact my decision on this ability tonight, or on this item tonight, so we will just make that known. Item number 3 is approval of the findings of fact from the August 16, 2018 meeting. I have 3 findings of fact. I have the Bullwinkle conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit at the property address 1202 West Murray Bluff Court. We have Munchkin University for a conditional use for a preschool at the property address 5099 South Germania Place. And then we have Mountain West CDL seeking a conditional use for a commercial driver's license education at the property address. It's wrong. The property addressed 4700 South, 900 East. Everybody had an opportunity to review those 3.
Yes.
Any corrections or entertain a motion?
Didn't we have the correction from Ned
In
the pre-meeting?
It was the Ojeda that
Yeah.
was incorrect in the summary.
Yeah.
Yes, I did not read that one in, though.
Okay.
So that
Oh,
one,
okay.
yeah, that one's not going to be,
That one's not gonna
that's
be,
not a
okay.
finding of fact this evening. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the findings of fact for the Bullwinkle accessory dwelling unit, the Munchkin University, and Mountain West CDL.
I have a motion by Mr. Markham. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Woodbury. He was fast to the draw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Before we get into the additional items, I will just note that item number 8, Intermountain Gardener transformation, will be going as item number 6, and item number 6 and 7 will be going after the Gardner transformation subdivision. So item number 4 on the agenda is America First Credit Union and Larry H. Miller Auto seeking a conditional use for vehicle storage lot at the property address 5789 South State Street. Is the applicant here this evening? Perfect. We'll have you up in just a few moments. Mr. Smallwood?
Okay, so with speaking to the applicant, they would like to make the meeting go or readdress this meeting on October 4th. So if you guys are amicable to that, we would need to entertain a motion and carry that forward.
Does anyone on the commission have concerns about hearing that item at a different date?
No.
None.
No. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we continue the item number 4, which is America First Credit Union, Larry H. Miller Auto, conditional use permit to the October 4th Planning and Zoning meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to continue item number 4, American First Credit Union, Larry H. Miller, conditional use for vehicle storage lot at the property address 5789 South State Street until the October 4th meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Ms. Milkevich. All in favor? Actually, call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Milkevich.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes, motion carries. That item is continued. Item number 6 this evening is Intermountain Gardener Transformation Subdivision and Council Plaza Subdivision Amendment. Did I skip 5? Yeah,
Skip five.
I guess we need to do 5 first, sorry. Item number 5 this evening is the Olive Tree Yoga conditional use for a yoga studio at the property address 6051 South, 900 East. That was an honest oversight. Mr. Smallwood.
Awesome. And I don't know, do we need to address anything about actually having Miss Wilson be excused for the minutes or anything?
You just said it.
Okay,
There
well,
you go.
there I go. I said it. So, Olive Tree Wholeness is a yoga studio that's proposing to go at 6051 South 9th East. It's located in the in the CN, which is our neighborhood commercial zone. It's just located there off 9th East. Here we have our the elevations in the site plan. It will actually be going in this area, this bottom area down here. It's 988 square feet as part of the entire, entire development. It does have 18 parking stalls in the staff report, and I'll just make mention here that I incorrectly calculated the parking, but due to the amount of students that she'll be having there on site, it's okay. We still have that number of parking available with the 8 students she proposes. So with that, this is not working today. There we go. Here are some photos of the site. It fits in with the neighborhood commercial. It looks kind of like a house off to the side. And then this would actually be the property, the location maybe. It's the bottom left-hand corner. Is where the yoga studio would be going. And we are recommending approval of this conditional use permit subject to the following 5 conditions. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Smallwood?
Pretty straightforward.
No.
Okay, thank you. If we could have the applicant come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Melissa Tresco, 1935 South, 1500 East, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84105.
Have you had an opportunity to review the 5 conditions?
Yes.
You'll be able to comply with those 5 conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
No.
No. Any questions for the applicant?
No.
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. This item is available for public comment, so if anyone would like to speak to this issue, we just ask that you come up, state your name and address for the record. And seeing no one wishing to speak to it, I will close the public comment, bring it back here for a motion and/or discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow a yoga studio at the property address 6051 South, 900 East.
I have a motion by Mrs. Milkevich to approve a conditional use,
Subject to the conditions. Did I say it right?
subject conditions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Turn the page. Subject to the 5 conditions as posted and
All
discussed.
right, so I have a motion by Mrs. Milkevich to approve a conditional use permit to allow a yoga studio at the property address 6051 South, 900 East, subject to conditions 1 through 5. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Marin's got it.
Okay, I have a second by Mrs. Patterson. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries. Good luck with your yoga studio. All right, now, item number 6 is the Intermountain Gardner Transformation Subdivision and Council Plaza Subdivision amended, seeking a lot consolidation and subdivision amendments at the properties addressed 4982, 5022, 5026, 5034, 4950, and 5058 South State Street. Is the applicant here this evening? Okay, we'll have you up in a moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ney. This is an overhead of the property. You see State Street that runs along the east frontage of the property, and then you see Lost Creek Lane and other IMC properties beyond and to the west. You can see a number of lots here on the overhead on the aerial. We're looking at approximately 4.71 acres of property, which would go around the transformation center, which has been constructed. So all of those in attendance that are interested in this site or have concerns, this is where the new transformation center has been built, directly across the street and a little bit south of City Hall. The zoning is CD for that particular area, and this is the proposal. All of those properties would be consolidated into one large lot as per their conditional use and site plan approval in 2016. So basically, they had to take a couple lots from the Council Plaza subdivision and along with 6 meets and bound description type properties, and condense or combine them into one legal lot, which is shown as Lot 1 here on the drawing. So you can see the site. This is the building. Very beautiful, very, very nice enhancement for Murray City, part of the IMC campus. This is kind of a cleanup item. State Code 109A-608 does require us to go through a lot line adjustment process as well as an amended plat process because, as I indicated, we have 2 lots in a previously recorded commercial subdivision as well as meets and bounds descriptions that are being combined into one 4.71 acre parcel. Staff recommends approval of this, that the Planning Commission or the Land Use Authority approve it as per the 6 conditions as listed above. Any questions of staff?
Questions for staff?
I did have just a quick question. I know this was part of their conditional use approval in 2016. Were there problems? Like, how come we're seeing it were there problems in getting all of this to work out into one lot? Is that why we're seeing it so far later?
Yeah, it's taken a little bit of time for them to work with, to get it all consolidated,
Okay.
to get a survey done. Tom Arioni from IMC is here, and he can answer some of those
Okay.
questions, but it did take a little bit longer than they
'Cause, yeah, that's
anticipated. But they have been in contact with us
Gotcha.
all along. And, you see recently they've been doing landscaping and
Yeah, they're almost.
interior tenant improvements, so things are moving very quickly now.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Jim, I just have just a kind of an administrative question. I noticed that, this approval is strictly for the Planning Commission tonight. There's no recommendation to the mayor that
Correct.
so this is like our first item that we've had where that step has been removed, that we will be the deciding authority on this?
Well, right. In this case, this one is not required.
It would not have normally been a
Correct.
recommendation to the mayor?
Correct.
Okay.
This is one that the Land Use Authority, according to that 109A, 608, and 609, is solely to the Land Use Authority.
Okay.
And we're going to be working on matching our subdivision ordinance for all subdivisions in the future.
Right. That was my thinking
Yes.
along those lines. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. If we could have the applicant come up, just state your name and address for the record, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Tom Uriona. My address is 36 South State Street, Salt Lake City.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review the 6 conditions, and you'll be able to comply with those 6 conditions?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this?
Just a little history. We had to go through a vacation of 2nd Avenue. That took some time. We had old easements to vacate. That took some time. We had new easements to negotiate. That took some time. So it was a process. And we're now to the point that I think we're finished. So I appreciate your help, guidance, patience, and we're looking forward to this facility opening soon.
Any idea when that actually will be?
Grand opening is the 19th.
19. Wow. Very soon.
September.
So I
guess
think
we've got past the 2 weeks.
you'll be excited to see it.
Very good.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public comment period, so if anyone would like to speak to this issue, we ask you just come up, state your name and address for the record. And seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it up here for discussion and/or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the requested Intermountain Gardner Transformation Center subdivision and Council Plaza subdivision amended, subject to the 6 conditions in the report.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Patterson to approve the requested Intermountain Gardner Transformation Center subdivision and Council Plaza subdivision amendment, subject to conditions 1 through 6. Oh, I should read the address. At the property's
yeah.
address 4982, 5022, 5026, 5034, 4950, and 5058 South State Street, subject to conditions 1 through 6.
I'd like the second.
Second by Mrs. McCavich. Call for a vote, please.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Packer?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Mr. Nate?
Yes, motion carries. All right. Now, item formerly 6 and 7, now item 7 and 8, are River Park Commons seeking a 40-unit condominium townhome development and preliminary condominium subdivision review for the property address 4878 South Murray Boulevard. Is the applicant here this evening? Perfect. We'll have you up in just a few. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. This is a townhome project. It's condominium subdivision that requires a conditional use permit. So we've reviewed the two together for you in one presentation, so you don't have to listen to me twice tonight, basically. It will require two motions, though, just to be clear. It is called River Park Commons. The land is along the west side of Murray Boulevard, just east of the Jordan River Parkway, just south of Little Cottonwood Creek, and north of Hunter's Woods Apartments, if you can know where that is. And I always like to say south of the Swipe and Shine, just because it's kind of fun to say if you say it multiple times. The zoning is RM15. The council and commission recently voted to change that zoning, amend that zoning based on our general plan that was updated in 2017 that called for some medium-density housing in this area to provide that missing middle that we identified in the process of doing the general plan update. Just to kind of further locate you here in the world, this is across the street also from the large parking lot on the south side of the AISU school, the old 49th Street Galleria, for lots of you that might remember that in the audience. This is the site plan that they're showing. The units are all condominium units. They're townhome style, so there are no floors, there are no ownership above and below each other. It's side by side, arranged into different buildings. All of the buildings have garages facing this interior access road that connects them all. That is private land. That's in a condominium subdivision plat. You're going to have private land, limited common area, and common area. So just to point out really quickly for you on this site plan, the units themselves are going to be private ownership, and that's the only thing that's owned privately by anybody in the project. The roadway going through is all common. The open space is common. The driveways, there's a little bit of limited common between the units and the garages, or the garages on the units and the roadway, actually. Most of the time, that's only about 5 feet. There are a couple of instances where that's larger, around corners, etc. To point out a couple of things, there's only one access in and out of the project. That roadway width maintains a 26-foot width to let people back in and out of the garages. It's not extremely wide, but it'll be slow speeds. It's not a roadway. This is just basically a driveway to serve all these units. There's some guest parking located on the north and south areas to allow people to get around. One of the comments that we made in the staff report that you'll see is that we'd like to see a little bit more work on the interior pedestrian walkways, those sidewalks, to make sure that those guest parking areas are better connected to the units themselves. We're not sure how to do that, but there's probably a clever way that they can design that. There is an interior walkway system, though, that goes around the fronts of the units, kind of connecting them all together. And then, again, we'll talk about amenities here in a moment, but we are working with the applicants to provide the first section of the Little Cottonwood Creek Trail that the city is interested in doing. The challenge with that trail is, unlike the Jordan River Parkway, that land along the Little Cottonwood Creek is mostly private. So when we have an opportunity like this, we want to take advantage of it to get that trail installed. Let me move on to the next slide here and just show you. We're talking about that trail. The upper photograph there is a depiction of the trail's location where we expect to see that happen. Following the creek, this is the subject property right here in the north end along the creek. You'd cross Murray Boulevard, and then we hope to get extensions of it further to the east as we go. It'll take years to get all those extensions in place, but eventually we'd hope to connect that up to the canal trail that was approved last year. You can see down in the lower photograph, too, this is the bank of the creek. There's a lot of vegetation along the bank of the creek. The trail would run right along that top of the bank. 20 feet from the top of the bank is required by Salt Lake County to remain clear. There can be no construction in that area, no buildings in that area. It's required for maintenance, and that's where we can put the trail. We can't build buildings, but we can have the trail, so it kind of makes it's kind of a natural fit for the trail easement. To be clear, the trail that you can see here kind of in this portion of the landscaping plan, the trail would be public, although it would cross that private ownership of the common area in this condominium project. That'd be the case in most of the instances where we get sections of this trail. It'll be public trail across private land. That's not easy to do, so when we have development, we need to get those sections if we can. This is, again, just showing you where it would cross Murray Boulevard. Looking down right here, this is the on the property. That's the creek bank right there. This would connect to the Jordan River Trail. You can see the Jordan River Trail here. I did manage to get a shot of a biker on the trail. He almost hit me. There's a small bridge, there's a pedestrian bridge crossing over the confluence of the Jordan River and the Little Cottonwood Creek right here, and just the other side of that is the Arrowhead Trail, the Arrowhead Park. These are sewer and water plans. Utilities in the area are available. We don't have any huge issues there. Drainage would outfall directly to the creek. That requires a special permit that they're working on. Sorry, we're back. There are a couple of other permits, and I wanted to talk about that as well. They're working with Salt Lake County Flood Control, with Sovereign Lands for the creek. Whenever we're building in proximity to the Jordan River and to the Little Cottonwood Creek like this, there are several permits that have to be in place. You'll notice in the site plans and these grading and drainage plans, this structure here is what's called a launch trench. You might remember that from the Murray Cove subdivisions. They have to build one of those here as well to stabilize that bank and prevent flooding in the future. The offsets of the buildings are related to the 75 feet that's required from the Jordan River and to the floodplains. On the north side, it's a little easier with Cottonwood Creek. We just need to maintain that 20 feet. Landscaping plan. There's a landscaping plan that's been provided, and this lets us talk about the improvements along Murray Boulevard. So this is undeveloped land. This is a vacant piece of property. As a part of the subdivision, we will be requiring a 6-foot curb-adjacent sidewalk along Murray Boulevard. That matches the existing infrastructure in the area. It lets them have some space between that sidewalk also and their building units. There's a required 20-foot setback for buildings in this zone. This is the only setback that's required, by the way, is along Murray Boulevard. And it is 20 feet. They've got 25 to 30 feet in this area, depending on where you are. And that allows them some space to plant trees like have been done in Hunter's Woods, so we continue that sort of look down the road. They've been willing to do that as part of their landscape plan. The other thing that we've asked for as a part of this project is that they consider or hire someone to do a tree survey or a tree inventory. The code, the Murray Ordinance does require that we consider or try to mitigate the impacts of or lessen the possibility of the unnecessary destruction of mature trees. There are a lot of cottonwoods down along the river area. Some of them are on this private land, some of them are on the parkway, but some of them are on the private land and along the creek bank. And some of those areas, this area right here that you can see in the photograph corresponds to this area here. So rather than clearing everything out and replanting smaller trees, we'd like them to do a tree inventory and see what we can save that's already down there existing, especially among the willows and the cottonwoods. It's natural riparian vegetation. It should stay if we can. They've agreed to do that in preparation to move forward to the final subdivision approval and see what we have available. I don't know why that keeps happening, but these are the units themselves. You can see the 2-car garage. This is the main floor. 2-car garage. You have living and dining room, family area, kitchen. The second floor is where the bedrooms are located. These are all 3-bedroom units.
With 3 sinks.
And there is a small basement, a partial basement excavation for mechanical equipment. Basements, as we mentioned in the pre-meeting, are an issue for the engineer. They're working through some of those, and I understand from speaking with the applicant just tonight that they feel like they've got a handle on that at this point after the last meeting they had with Trey Stokes, our city engineer. So they'll be establishing base flood elevations for any basements they build. There are some things in the works to deal with that. But that is a requirement that you can see in the conditions of the approvals that we've recommended. Elevations of the units, the back side is the garage portion. So that faces that interior private drive access. The fronts of the units are gabled. They're 2 stories. They have some variation in the architecture, which is nice. The sides of the units have some colored elevations to show you as well. They do use a little. We talked about fencing a lot in the staff report. I won't get into it too much here, but they use a little picket fence just in front of the units to define kind of where they break from the space where the private walk or where the common walkways are throughout the project. So you have just a little space in front of your unit. We are very pleased with kind of the color combinations and the sort of the variation of the fronts of the units is very nice. Good materials being used. There's exterior finishes. They're using a lot of stone, brick, hardy plank, and various colors that all kind of go well together without being too strange. They're looking pretty good for us. We are recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the attached conditions. A lot of those are from engineering to make sure that we get the right permits in place to build by the river, We have recommended in those conditions as well that they provide that tree inventory moving forward to final plat. And that's for the conditional use permit. As I mentioned, we do need two motions. Technically, it's two items on the agenda. We need a motion for the conditional use permit and a vote, and then we need a motion for the preliminary subdivision approval and a vote as well. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Any questions for staff?
With regard to the basement issue.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily warrant a condition at this time, right?
No, and that's why the language from the engineer was recommended that they work with him on establishing that, or eliminate the basements or establish base flood elevations to work that out.
Rather than recommend, could we say require that they work with the city engineer to come to a mutual decision concerning the basements in certain
Certainly.
buildings?
Certainly. And they're already doing that, so I don't think they would
Okay.
object to that.
All right.
Anything else?
Can we talk about the trail for a moment?
Sure.
Do you plan on putting in the crossing improvements across the street there?
That's a good question. And no, for one simple reason. There's not continuous sidewalk on the east side of Murray Boulevard through the apartment complexes, through Hunter's Woods. There is some crossing available further up the road to get the sidewalk on the right side. When the second section of trail comes, which would be maybe within the next 5 to 6 years, then we would put crossing improvements in. I don't think we would anticipate requiring them at this point because they wouldn't really take you anywhere.
With the pharmacy that was just approved there, is that going to improve
That's a good
sidewalk access
question.
there?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. But I'd like to look into that, preparing for final, actually. That would be a good comment.
Okay. All right.
I got halfway back to the Parkway Trail stuff, but I didn't make it before you got your question done.
Any additional questions? And then just point of order, do I need to open two separate public comments or just a single
I
public
think
comment?
one public comment would be fine.
Perfect. All right. We could have the applicant come up. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sean Poor. My address is 215 North Redwood Road in North Salt Lake.
Okay.
Jared did a great job outlining everything that we're planning on doing. We're really excited about this site and the trail as well. I think it's going to be a great amenity for our project, and it'll be nice once it continues on to have that amenity there. As far as the conditions that have been placed on here, we don't have any problem with those conditions. We're happy to do a tree inventory. We see the value in retaining those trees for shade and privacy, as well as they make the trails look better. So as far as the basements go, as Jared mentioned, we have met with the city engineer on several occasions, and we've found a elevation that we agree on and that we're willing to make work with conjunction with some active systems of foundation drains and that sort of thing. There is one building that's up against the floodplain where we will be raising it to 1 foot above base flood elevation per city ordinance as well as FEMA. So we're confident that we've got a pretty good solution figured out with the engineer on that one. On other items, we're happy to look at our sidewalks and find a way to make it work better so we get to our guest parking. We don't have people cutting across lawns and that sort of thing. Other than that, like I said, Jared did a good job summing it up, and that's all I've got.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Answered my concern.
Yeah, actually, my question to you was going to be about the internal circulation sidewalks. So it sounds like you're at least looking into it, and we'll come up with something that'll work for everybody.
Yeah, we'll propose some new locations. So.
Perfect. Any additional questions? No? All right, we'll have you take a seat. At this point in time, I will open this item up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this, we ask that you just state your name and address for the record. Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Smeltzer. I live at 539 West Riverside Drive in the Aberdeen Condominium Association, just south of this proposed project. Our association is concerned with this project and the number of units that it involves. He has proposed 40 townhomes with 2-car garages, which will bring at least 80 to 100 cars into that neighborhood along 700 West. Those of you familiar with the area realize that Hunters Woods has overflow parking on 700 West, as well as in our area, which is the Aberdeen condo project. We have our streets are public, so anybody can park on our streets. So we have all the overflow parking from Hunters Woods, and then the overflow parking is also on 700 West, along with semi-parking and trailer home parking along that corridor between Hunters Woods and the corner of 48th. We're also concerned with the school, kids crossing the street. You mentioned the raised sidewalk, which is closer to Hunters Woods, that kids cross on a daily basis, going back and forth from their apartments, school, swimming pool, tennis courts, whatnot. So we're just concerned with 40 units, parking, cars, people going, too fast down 700 West. We think the project is too big.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Cull. I'm at 5007 South Riverside Drive. If you were to put the map back up there, you could see we are just barely on the other side of the apartment swimming pool from this development. I just have a few concerns that Carrie, she touched on a lot of those. A couple of those are the density, and if I'm not mistaken, in a previous Planning Commission meeting, we were talking 20 units, and now we're up to 40. You might have to correct me on that, but I know it was lower than this 40 units. We're very, very concerned about this density and how many vehicles. And all the kids that are coming from the international school, plus from the apartments, all the crossing, it's all the time. We have to be very, very careful down there. Plus the intersection and them going over to the Maverick to get drinks or whatever. Right now, the parking, it's horrible. The apartments, Hunters Woods takes up a lot of parking. They do not have enough for their residents. It is not uncommon for us to have great big wreckers or U-Hauls or whatever in front of our house down here on Riverside Drive that are from the apartments, but they have to find somewhere to park. One big concern I have is when you look at this map of when they are, how far they're going to go into this property line and where the river is. They need defensible space. There's a lot of brush out there. There's a lot of trees, and from past experience on that, you've got to have a berm out there that runs behind it so emergency city workers can even get in there on the river and the parkway if they need to be. I would have concerns about mentioning the large parking lot across the street and who owns that, or it being used for parking for this development or for the apartments, or the apartment's going to be able to use that and then it takes it away from the development. The last thing is on the plus side. Right now, they're on Riverside Drive. There's a lot of semis that park for extended periods or overnight. It would probably do away with the semi parking right there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
I'm Karen Edwards, and I don't live by this, but I go through there all the time, and I just wanted to comment. It's a nightmare. I really support that fact with these people, the density of the parking and the safety of children going back and forth. I just creep through there, and it's a passageway I use a lot. So I just wanted to add a supportive comment. They really are talking about a concern.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, I will close public comment and bring it back up here for discussion. Motions?
A question for staff. Did the city engineer, did he have any concerns about the traffic? I mean, I drive through that quite often and have seen the same things that the residents voiced. A lot of kids running across the street, a lot of cars parked on there. And so just more concerned of, do we feel like the traffic study is warranted, Or, I mean, obviously the density falls within the zone
Right.
and the allowable use, but,
There was a traffic study done, actually. It
Okay.
didn't result in any recommended changes, largely because it's a relatively small number of units, 40 going out onto a major collector. We don't normally have that. Most of the time when we're doing infill or 20 or 30 units, if they're going out on the local streets, that's a challenge. This street was designed to handle this kind of traffic flow.
Right.
I understand, not to diminish concerns at all, but if there's a street where you can put 40 more units and handle the traffic, this is it. This is where we want to put this kind of traffic, as opposed to a smaller street, even Vine for that matter. This is a major collector. We do get the improvement of the sidewalk. That should help. Mentioned the crossing. The hard thing is human nature, getting people to cross where they're intended to cross. And this might present an opportunity for us to guide people to the right places to make the crossing on Murray Boulevard, on 700 West. So I hear the concerns. Maybe we can address that with some of the crossings that we could do as a result of this kind of development. So we'll have to look into that. But the traffic study itself did not recommend any changes, and that's why.
and then the nearest pedestrian crossing, I guess, is up at 48th and then up at Vine. Those are is there another one on there?
There's
I think there's one more.
There's a mid-block crossing
Yeah.
further up.
The clubhouse road.
Oh, right, the
and all
clubhouse,
that,
you're
yeah.
right, okay.
I don't recall the density that was originally suggested in the rezone, but this number feels like what we were discussing.
RM15, it approaches that. I think it is large. We were shooting from the hip at the zone change meeting because we
had no proposal.
We didn't have a proposal. And,
Sure.
and the density that's allowed is 12 units per acre. They're at I'm going to get it wrong, so I don't want to do that, but they're at
3.31.
3 plus acres. So they're right in line with the 40 units. They were able to make that work. We wondered at the hearing for the zone change if they could make that work with the constraints of the river and the creek and having to get people to and from the units. They've been able to do that. So I have no reason to have concerns with the density that's proposed. It's right in line with the zoning.
Okay.
In terms of parking, if I may, as long as I'm up. We talked about parking. These are all parked at 2.5 spaces per unit, which is what we require for multifamily. So I can't really speak to the issues of parking from Hunter's Woods overflowing. This project will self-park, and it's not real convenient to get from somewhere else back to it, and there is some guest parking available in the 2-car garages. So I don't see an issue from parking from this particular project creeping to other adjacent properties.
And the HOA has enforcement action if people try to park 4 cars on the property and live there. So
there was a question about the ownership of the parking lot across the street. That's owned by AISU, by the school, and I'm not sure what they go back and forth about their plans for its disposition. So they may develop it someday. We don't know.
they're no longer leasing it.
No, they own it.
No, they're not leasing out parking.
Not to Murdoch Hyundai.
Okay.
That's over.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very near and dear to Jim's heart. It's
It
taken a
is,
long time to
indeed.
get rid of that.
Okay.
Anything else I can answer for you at this time?
I have one, Jared. So I live in this neighborhood also and drive this street daily. And as Scott said, I've got concern with the traffic also. I understand the traffic study didn't maybe warrant changing the street. However, as a major collector, even understanding that the parking is, I mean, it's bumper to bumper from all the way through Hunter's Wood, and no doubt will continue with semis and other oversized vehicles parking for long duration there. But would the city consider doing any other traffic calming through there? I mean, there's lots of pedestrians and even people going from the sidewalk to their cars, getting into their cars that are on the street. But again, understanding that it was designed as a collector, it still has a considerable number of parked cars that people are accessing and lends itself to some issues in that regard.
We could. I appreciate the comment, Ned. I think we could raise that to traffic and safety. Traffic calming is usually something that would be in their purview. Trey would bring that up to them, the city engineer. A lot of the challenge is that the same things that are concerning, the cars parked on the road and that kind of thing, are the same kind of visual cues that should be slowing people down. And that'll continue with this development. They're planting the trees out there like they should. Those trees also kind of tend to slow people down. But the width of the road is there, and that kind of invites the speeds that are there. And the traffic plans for the city, or the transportation plans for the city, do call for it to maintain those kind of speeds. It was designed that way. We can raise it to traffic and safety. That's probably the best thing that I could recommend.
Yeah, Jared, just to echo what Ned said, I'd appreciate that as well. Just kind of a second look, and especially as it goes in and as it moves forward, if it moves forward, just, traffic and safety, take a look at it, because it really is a, I know there's the science behind the traffic study saying that there's not an impact. Then there's the people that drive it and see that they're.
Sure.
I actually had that conversation with my wife today about one of these items, and she said, "I know there will be an impact." And I said, "Well, the traffic study doesn't say that," and so I'm getting in an argument over planning things with my wife, which was lovely. But so I guess there's the anecdotal things that saying, yeah, we know that there's an issue. We need to just make sure we raise that to traffic and safety. So I'd appreciate that as well.
Jim takes our issues from planning and zoning to the Traffic and Safety Committee and sits on that committee, so we'll have him take that before we're back.
Thank you.
Can I propose that we add one more thought to the well-stated comments already?
Sure.
When we bring this to traffic and safety, we also include that when the road was designed, there might not have been two schools on either side of the road, which might be contributing to the pedestrian traffic currently.
Sure.
Well, I think it'd be nice too if there was something the city could do enforcement-wise to prevent the large vehicles from parking along there.
And that we can definitely look into. That's the kind of thing that comes up and may very well already be on their radar. So we'll try to push that.
There certainly are a lot of them.
Yeah.
So.
There's one in the aerial.
Yeah, exactly. There's one in the aerial. That was photoshopped.
All right. Anything else for staff?
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit allowing a condominium subdivision on the property address 4878 South Murray Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 11.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a conditional use permit allowing a condominium subdivision on the property address 4878 South Murray Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 11.
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Milkavich.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Mr. Nate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, discussion and/or a motion on the condominium subdivision review.
Jared, didn't you say that you're going to take that up before a final review?
Yes.
So, okay.
This is only a preliminary subdivision. Condominiums under our condominium ordinance that Ray Christensen wrote.
Right.
Rest his
Mhm.
findings, so still alive.
Still with us. He's just, right.
It has to be done in prelim and final in 2 steps.
Right, because the motion says, and
Submit.
oh, premiere and submit. Okay, we're okay. Just wanted to make sure we're good.
You're great, thank you.
So, okay. Well, then I guess I'll make another motion.
Yeah, since you're so great.
Oh, exactly. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary condominium subdivision review and direct the applicant to prepare and submit a final condominium subdivision application subject to conditions 1 through 11.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a preliminary condominium subdivision review and direct the applicant to prepare and submit a final condominium subdivision application for the property addressed 4878 South Murray Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 11. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Patterson. Call for a vote, please.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yep.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Milkavich.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Mr. Nate.
Yes, motion carries. Good luck. We'll see you in a few months. All right, thank you. Item number 9 this evening is the Carriage Creek Subdivision Plat Number 1 amended and lot line adjustments for property addressed 415 East, 4800 South, and then the additional property in this is 4746 South Glen Ridge Way.
Thank you, Commissioner Ney. So this is similar to the previous application that we reviewed for the IMC, although this is residential rather than commercial or office. So we have a lot identified as Lot 22 in the Carriage Creek subdivision. So that would be the top lot, the home that you see off the curve there. And then we have another home that is identified with just a meets and bounds legal description that was built quite a while before. And so the proposal is to do a lot line adjustment between these two properties. The zoning's R18 for both properties in question. This is a copy of the survey, so you can see that property in between the two properties. The property above or to the north, I'm not seeing an arrow here, so my direction could be wrong, but the property above in the legally platted subdivision and the property below, which is meets and bounds. So the property in the subdivision would be gaining approximately 8,400 square feet, and it would be approximately 22,000 square feet in size, which is quite a bit more than the required R18 zone of 8,000 square feet. And then the other property, which the property's coming from, would still be just under 19,000 square feet in size. So not an issue here relative to zoning and setbacks. It's just basically a process to amend the plat and to do a lot line adjustment as per state code. And that section of code is 109A6082A III, allowing for the adjustment of lot lines adjoining lots or parcels if the fee owners of each of the adjoining lots or parcels join in the petition, regardless of whether lots or parcels are located in the same subdivision. So we have one in a subdivision plat, one lot, and the other one is not. I have a picture because I believe this question came up a little bit earlier about the properties. The top pictures here are the home in the subdivision, and the bottom two pictures are the home outside of the subdivision, which is meets and bounds. But you can see the top home above. There's quite a bit of side yard there because of the curve, the radius there on the road. And my guess is they would just extend or kind of put, a radius in that sidewalk and connect to that property that they're looking to obtain from the other property owner to potentially build a detached garage at some point in time. Now, they'll have to go through process with city staff, building permits, zoning sign-offs, easements, all of that stuff will be reviewed at a later date administratively there in our offices. So staff would recommend approval of the requested amended subdivision and lot line adjustment subject to the 7 conditions as outlined above. Any questions for staff?
I have a
Go ahead.
quick question. Item number 4 in the conditions was the square footage that we discussed and determined was well within requirements done before or after that, excluding the right-of-way from the. So item number 4, the right-of-way needs to be excluded from the legal description.
Yeah.
Once that occurs, it still is within.
Do you know the answer to that, Jared?
I don't. I'm sorry.
We have Susan Nixon here from staff. Do you know the answer to that, Susan? Can you come on up?
Sorry, I thought it was an easy question. I didn't mean to stump you.
Let me read the number 4 here. Right away needs to be excluded from.
It's the 48
Oh,
south.
I'm assuming since the plot's so large that it'll still be within requirements, but.
Yeah, it's the city engineer that wants that. Made sure that the right-of-way is not part of the meets and bounds. And old legal descriptions, a lot of times, go to center line. And so even if we deduct that, it's probably still going to be 16 or 17,000 square feet. We can clarify that, and certainly would have to be changed before they record anything.
yeah, right. Sorry, he is correct. That is that does show it being excluded, so they've taken that out, and it will be deeded over to the city. They can do that by a deed after this approval's done, and after this approval document is recorded. So yes, it by far meets the area for both lots.
Good question. If it was
Yeah.
hovering about 8,000 square feet, we'd have a concern.
Yeah.
But the size, we didn't. Thanks. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Any additional questions? No? Okay. We will open actually, it's the applicant here this evening. Come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Russ Nelson, and I'm at the 4746 Glen Ridge Way.
Okay, you've had an opportunity to review the 7 conditions.
I have.
You'll be able to meet those 7 conditions. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nope.
Nope? Okay. Have a seat. Unless there's questions for the
that
applicant.
really necessary?
Yeah, it really was. Okay. At this point in time, we will open this up for public. Oh, come on up.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Dondi De Niro Reichman, and I own the property at 415 East, 4800 South.
And you'll be able to comply with these 7 conditions as well? All right. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this?
No, any questions or concerns I can answer?
I think we're good. Thank you. All right, this is public comment, so we will open this up. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, come on up. And go ahead. Yes, please.
My name's Zambos. I live at 496 East Spruce Glen Road. So this isn't going to be used for some monstrosity of a garage that's going to,
There are limits to the height of a garage. It is a secondary building to the property, so I'm not sure on the height. 20 feet.
20 feet. Just-
One story.
20 feet, 20 foot.
So no apartment complex up on top or anything like that.
it's the back half of that yard of her dad's old house. Okay.
Yes.
Because the one on 4800 South is huge. That house is an eyesore, and I don't want that in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we will close comment and bring it back up here for discussion and or a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And I'm not sure how relevant this is, but by adding that property adding the bigger plot of property to the lot 22, does that allow now for a flag lot to be developed? Potentially allow for a flag lot to be developed?
The 28 foot, I think, is going to be tough. Can you go to the overhead?
Just in all fairness, because the community's talking about garage size, it might be also warranted to talk about.
And then, Mr. McNulty, could you just clarify what a flag lot is, please, for the
Yeah,
folks
a
here?
flag lot is a lot that does not have public frontage. Generally, it's a piece of property, it's a deep lot property or property that has excess where they provide a private drive to provide access to the back area of the lot. In this case, I don't see that being available because they don't have the width to extend a 24-foot drive access. So actually 28 feet,
28
right?
foot,
Because it would
correct.
be 20-foot paved with 4 foot
4
of
foot on each
easement
side.
on either side. I think they would have to obtain property from additional property owner to do something like that. I don't see that being in the cards, and we haven't heard from the applicant. It's a question we could ask the property owner. I think you've lived there for a while. If you'd be interested in a home behind your home, I don't think so. Are you planning on being there for a while? Okay. That's a good question. I don't see it in this scenario. Now, it would have been more likely for the property owner who's actually selling and
the
deeding
property,
the property
correct.
to the property owners in the subdivision, but I don't see that as the case. And then we would get into issues actually with setback and depth based on how you would site it. Even though it's a good-sized piece of property, it's kind of narrow and deep. It doesn't meet standard, 80 by 100 lot requirements.
Right.
So I don't think so.
That was my assumption as well. That was the root of my question about the driveway earlier in the
Right.
meeting, but just.
Right. Good question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the requested amendment subdivision of lot line adjustment subject to through 7.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Hacker to approve the requested amended subdivision and lot line adjustments for the property address 415 East 4800 South and 4746 South Glenridge Way.
I'd like to second that motion.
And I have a second by Ms. Milkevich. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries. Good luck. All right. I threw away my notes. They're there. Item number 10 this evening is Atkinson zoning map amendment from an A1 to a R18 at the property's address 777 and 778 West Bullion Street. Is the applicant here this evening? Okay, we'll have you up in just a moment. Mr. Smallwood.
Okay, great. So this property, like you mentioned, is at 777 and 787 on Bullion, in between Anderson and Bullion. It's 1.8 acres. It currently is the Circle A Stables, and we had an application come in. It's currently an agricultural zone with R18 surrounding it. The applicant has come in and proposed to change that to R18, which is our single-family low-density residential zone. Pretty straightforward. The general plan calls for this to be changed over to R18, and it's just those two parcels. And never mind. Hold on one second. Just a couple photos of the site. The top is off of Bullion, and then the bottom ones are from the south, facing the school. And then staff does recommend that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. This would go to the City Council for their approval.
Can I ask you one question? I'm just asking him to
Yes, please.
clarify,
Please, sure.
Is our recently adopted general plan from 2017, is it in favor
Yes.
of this land?
Yes, yeah, it
Of a low-density residential for this property?
That's correct.
I believe it's in your report, but it wasn't in the overhead for the residents. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for me?
I just have a question about, you talk about the city engineer saying that there's a possibility of connecting Bullion and Anderson. Do you want
Yes.
to discuss that at all?
So we do not have a development proposal at this point, so we can't specifically speak about that. We have seen some concept plans. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to be proposed at the time if the zone change comes up, or if the zone change is approved. But we have seen some concepts that connect Bullion with Anderson.
And we're not opposed to this in general.
No, in general,
Were it to
no.
come forward.
It would actually potentially increase connectivity, especially around the school.
With the elementary school?
Yeah.
Mr. McNulty?
Correct, and I just wanted to clarify. That is correct, and I just wanted to clarify, as the Planning Commission knows, we're here for the rezoning of property tonight. And once the rezoning is complete, if it's chosen to be approved by, or recommended approval by the Planning Commission and later approved by the council, the applicant will be required to come in and go through a public hearing process with the subdivision plat, where we get more into the design and drill down at that point. All we can say is we've seen some concepts, but that doesn't mean that idea or concept could change. We're just here for zoning only tonight, so.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I believe it's fair at this point to state also that we don't know what is being suggested built in that area, but we do know it's suggesting the change of zoning to a residential area. And to that end, the city has looked at the utilities and services in the area to see if it would support that. And we, just so the public is aware, that the city has gone through that process and does believe that the utilities and service in the area would support the new zoning. Right?
Okay, if we could have the applicant come up for a moment. And we'll have you state your name and address for the record. Sorry, we don't make tall microphones here.
It's all right. Dick Larson, 1474 West, 5550 South, Taylorsville.
All right, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation this evening?
I do not.
You do not. All right, any questions for the applicant? No? Easy peasy. All right,
That's it.
take a seat.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to this issue, we invite you to come on up. State your name and address for the record, ma'am.
I'm Karen Edwards at 757 Bullion Street. The property just east of this one being rezoned, and I support the rezoning and what they're doing there. And I just have the statement to make that I'm grandfathered in to still have my pets. And I've had 50 years of persecution across the street toward the Circle A stables when they kept it clean and all of that. So I want to thank Murray for supporting them and not getting after them, but also make my statement that my property will now have backyards, and I want those people to understand that it's not changing for me.
You are a permitted use.
Oh, I am. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's my only concern.
It's a very,
Thank you.
very good point. Anyone else? There's debate. Good evening.
I'm Emily Lawrence. My property address is 748 Anderson, which was recently part of Karen's property, and so I just wanted to make a note that I would like the option to do conditional use for animals and pets as well in the future. For at least 70, 80 years. So that's all. I just wanted that notated that may be, yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Anybody else? Good evening.
Evening. I'm Pam Cotter. I'm at 752 Bullion Street. The only concern I would have if Mr. Larson puts a street through it, and I know we don't need to talk about that today, but I do have concern if he puts a street through to connect Anderson with Bullion. The school children are going to use that street, and then the school district is going to have to look for another crossing guard, because right now there's a crossing guard on 800 West. So I'm very concerned that the kids are going to run across, go onto this new street, come across Bullion, and then go into their homes. I also would recommend that when Mr. Larson starts proceedings on this, that we look at another speed zone light on Bullion. And also, I'm just curious, how long, when you start selling these pieces of property, how long does the owner that buys the piece of property, how long do they have to build a house on that property? Because there is a piece of property on Bullion that's been sitting there for years and nobody's touched it. And so, I mean, can it sit there for 25 years?
Yes.
And just have another weed
Yes.
fest? So those are just my concerns of being on Bullion, and if this is a throughway street, I'm concerned for the kids. Because the school district has already put a chain link fence so the kids wouldn't run across being picked up by parents and grandparents, because the kids would scoot across and, you know. Anyways, I just have those concerns.
Yep. Anyone else? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. I live at 768 Bullion Street, exactly across the street from...
And your name, please?
Ashley Clark. Sorry. Right across the street from the stables. And I know a lot of the neighbors are excited that it's going to change to residential. So I might be one of the very few who is kind of bittersweet. I kind of liked them there because I felt like I was in the country, but I'm also excited, and a lot of people are excited that the dust and flies will be gone. But it's mainly just when the plans come about, whenever Jake submits them to you. A lot of people are concerned with the kids crossing the street. So just if the school wasn't there, it'd be fine. I know my neighbors wouldn't be talking to me about it, but people are just concerned about kids crossing streets. So somehow, if you can solve that problem, then that would be fabulous.
Perfect. Thank you. One last call. Anyone? All right. Seeing no one else, we'll close public hearing and bring it back up here for comments, questions.
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman, and to all the residents that came and spoke, thank you for coming and with the applicant being here, that's one of the reasons you go through multiple stages, and so they can take into these consideration for these things when they put together the whatever they propose to do with it, and then they'll bring that back, and you'll be noticed again when there will be the next meeting. So there's multiple opportunities, and so with it being on record and also you voicing them. So thank you for coming out and participating in the process. The applicant, I know, will do what I feel like is best, for the community, for the area, to make sure it's safe for the kids and everything. So so thank you for doing that. Just want to say thanks for coming out and for putting their concerns on record. So thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve or forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to request a zone map amendment for the properties located at 777 and 787 West Bullion Street from A1 agricultural to R18 single family residential low density.
All right. I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Patterson and a second by Mr. Woodbury to forward a recommendation.
Mr. Markham.
Sorry, Mr. Markham, sorry. To forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested zone map amendment for the properties located at 777 and 787 West Bullion from A1 agriculture to R18 single-family low-density residential. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Nate?
Yes, motion carries.
Mr.
Well,
Chair, can I ask a question real
Sure.
quick? And Mr. Hall, I feel like tell me if I'm out of line, but is it appropriate just to acknowledge the public had several concerns about the pedestrian walkway, and just to educate for a second, saying this is not the time or place for us to address it, but they could go to traffic and safety at a later point and have their concerns heard? Is that?
It's a good point, and I've already made some notes to
Okay.
look at that carefully as we're looking at subdivisions on the property.
I felt we should acknowledge that.
We did.
So traffic and safety is done at a staff level through the police department and city engineer. So staff represents our
it's
division,
done.
but when we have these comments, that'll be taken into consideration with the preliminary subdivision reviews. So we'll make sure we address it. Thank you.
All right. Item number 11, 12, and 13 will be heard as a single item. They are for Murray Hillcrest LLC, site plan review and conditional use permits for Murray Town Place Suites and Murray Abington Assisted Living Center for the property addressed 126 East, 5300 South. Mr. Hall.
Thank you. And I appreciate you working with me to deal with them all together. It only makes sense to talk about them as a group. The Murray Hillcrest Development Site Plan contains a couple of different elements. Two of those elements both involve conditional use permit approval, so we'll be talking about them all together. Let me just address the location and the address first of all, because the address doesn't make a lot of sense when you know the property. This is widely known as the old Hillcrest Junior High property. The address is 126 East, 5300 South, which is related to this location here. But the property, as you can see, is larger and goes all the way through to 5460
I'm going to
south.
stop you for just 1 second. Thank you, GL. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The new school, so you're looking at in this portion of this photograph, that's where the old school site was. This is the athletic field for the new school, for the new junior high, which is built there. You can see just the edge of the turnaround area in the front of the school and the Murray City Library building right here. This is the U-Haul at the corner of 5300 South and State Street. This piece that's not contained within the project area is the LDS Seminary building for the junior high. That's under a different contract with a different developer, will be developed independently and not associated with this project. This is all the property that's part of these applications is located in the CD, Commercial Development Zone, as is typical of State Street. The uses that they've proposed are all acceptable uses, either permitted or conditional. Just want to show a quick site plan here, and we have a lot more to talk about, but we'll go through them as we can. There is an associated subdivision, the last item on the agenda tonight, and wanted to just quickly point this out so it'll make more sense. The subdivision divides these properties, or divides the development into properties. One of the lots houses the proposed hotel, the Town Place Suites. Another lot houses the proposed retail pad site out on State Street. It's a site designed to accommodate about a 3,200 square foot retail building, restaurant, bank, that kind of thing. Another lot, then this is again the seminary building that's not part of the development. Another lot would accommodate another retail pad for a slightly larger building, about 6,000 square feet. Another lot would accommodate the Abington Assisted Living facility proposed here. And the final lot in the subdivision is this piece out on 5460 South, which is a little less accessible from the site itself, from the rest of the properties because of the grade differential. This development is a land lease from the school district, and that piece is included in the land lease, but it's not possible to develop it as part of this development cohesively, so it would be developed independently. But it had to come with the property for the subdivision, so that's why it's included in this mapping as well, but it is not a part. Again, you can see the U-Haul building here, also not a part. So let me just go through a couple of quick things to get you oriented to the site. We mentioned the Town Place Suites. That is a 129-room extended stay facility. Town Place is a Marriott product hotel. It's an extended stay, but not designed for long extended stays. A week or so is probably the most feasible thing there. The Abington Assisted Living, the other main component, the other anchor, if you will, at the south end of the site, is a 96-unit assisted living facility with range of care from memory care all the way just to assisted daily activities. The pad sites we don't have users for right now. Those would be developed. These are kind of illustrative plans showing how we can work parking out and leave a pad site, but the actual uses themselves would come later, and they may or may not require conditional uses, have to come back to the Planning Commission. Just to show you again, the grading of the site, State Street sits quite a bit higher. As you move east, it would drop down a lot. That's been dealt with in the site planning. But I wanted to show you just quickly so you can see that. The picture at the bottom shows you from looking from the library property. You can see that kind of rise up above here. This is that circle, drop-off circle in front of Hillcrest Junior High. And the north end is where the grade is steepest, and that's why that Lot 5 won't be part of the development proposal here. You can see, again, right here, very clearly, this is the area where the development would occur, and then there's that drop down to the athletic fields, et cetera, and you can see that drop-off that you can see in the photograph there. This is a landscaping plan just to show you, there's not a lot that you can see very clearly without looking at the large-scale plans, but just to show you there's more than the percentage required landscaping on the site. There's quite a few areas of landscaping. This is oriented differently than the other sites and photographs. This is the south end of the property where the pedestrian bridge comes across State Street. That does land on this property, and that's dealt with in the conditions that the engineer has proposed for us in the approval recommendations. So you're looking at the Abington assisted living facility here, and they have kind of gardens proposed back here for the folks that are living in that facility, and then some landscaping around. One of the things that we're asking for, as long as we're on this slide, one of the things that we've asked them to do is develop a pedestrian plan, a way that we can see very clearly as a part of this development how people get around on the site on foot. The parking is well taken care of. There are 254 stalls proposed, 223 required by our ordinance if we go through the math. So they're proposing more parking than is required. It's all shared between the different lots, the different development components. But we want to see how pedestrians get from, for example, the Abington Assisted Living Facility over to one of those pad sites that might become a restaurant. There might be considerable pedestrian traffic on the site, and we'd like a plan to evaluate that and make sure it makes sense to us. We've asked for that in the staff report there. Looking at the sites themselves that require conditional use permit approval, and by the way, the component of the site plan that requires your approval, and the reason it's before you for approval is because there is shared parking, and those issues come up, things like the pedestrian access, et cetera. But that's the one issue. The second is that there's a conditional use permit application for the Town Place suites, the proposed Town Place suites. Like we said, this is 129 rooms, extended stay. We do have the pad site kind of shown on this as well, and again, this is that LDS Seminary building that is going to be developed by an independent developer at some point.
Jared, how does the size of that the hotel compare to the existing Marriott on 53rd?
It has more rooms, but is smaller in square footage.
So overall footprint is a little bit smaller?
A little bit smaller.
Okay, thank you.
What about height?
Height-wise, let me get to the elevations here. So it is a 5-story building, the main floor and four floors above. This is, in portions anyway, this is the height of the building overall. I want to tell you, and I don't want to forget, the tallest point of the building is at the north end.
50-something feet.
50-something feet.
Which is well below the 100-plus feet that it could be in that
Correct.
particular location.
I won't be able to find it quick enough to give you all that information, but yeah, it's about half of what it would be allowed to be in height in terms of its distance from residential. We allow height in this zone at a base and then a certain number of feet above for every foot you're away, or for every 100 feet you are from residential zoning. So, or from every foot you are in addition to 100 feet from residential zoning. It's kind of a complicated formula. They're well underneath it at this point. For both buildings, by the way, not just the town suites proposed, but the Abington Assisted Living as well. The Abington Assisted Living facility that we'll look at in just a moment is just a 2-story building. But this is the taller of the two buildings on the north end where the site is lowest. Let me see if I can get back to you. It's not going to let me go back, so we'll just keep looking at this picture until it lets me. Not going to let me. Okay, so as long as we're moving on, do you have any other questions about the height or the size difference?
My real question was how it compared to the height of the hotel across the street.
It's about the same height.
But that's situated up
Yeah,
elevation-wise
it's not
up
on the
above,
hill.
so I think
Yeah.
overall height, it'll be.
Yeah. And the applicants may be able to speak to that better in terms of comparison. The same applicants built that building as are proposing this. Structurally, you're looking at the two elevations that face east and west. The west side is from the interior, the west side is from State Street, and you're looking at the interior side. That's the highest side you'd be seeing from the library property, the school property, et cetera. The two ends, north and south, so this is the north side. This is what you would see from 5300 South as you pass the building. Colors and materials below, there's EFIS, there's stucco, basically. There's some different painted materials. There is some hardy board being used. We have, as we discussed with you in the pre-meeting, we do feel like the materials and colors and construction of the proposed Abington building is more in line with what we'd like to see. And the Planning Commission had some discussions about adding a condition to add some brick or more masonry to these elevations as well, at least to the visible ones. We're supportive of that as staff if you want to make that condition. Similar to the residential, thank you, Jim, to the Abington assisted living and as well to the residence inn that they've constructed further up 5300 South. Any questions on the elevations for me at this point? So let's talk about the Abington. This is the Abington Assisted Living Facility that's proposed. Conditional use permit is required. As I said, there are components of this facility that would be memory care for folks with Alzheimer's or dementia, and then all the way down to just assisted daily activities, which is the lightest assisted living use. It's associated kind of with this pad site. Again, that speaks to that reason we want to see the pedestrian plan of access, crosswalks where people are crossing those roadways, et cetera, or the interior access ways. You can see very clearly the landing of the pedestrian bridge. That is owned by the city, and we're evaluating it. It's structurally, Trey asked me, the city engineer asked me to make sure that I did mention to you all that it is structurally sound. No one's going to fall off of it, or it's not going to fall apart, but it does need work, and we're assessing whether what work we're putting into it, what needs to be done. But it would land on this site and provide that access, so we would anticipate that kids would come across that bridge from the school and probably use these pad sites if they develop into restaurants and things like that. As we said, it's 96 units. It is a two-story structure. These are some of the elevations as you look at the west and east. Again, there's a lot of difference in the roof line. We like that. And this won't mean as much to a lot of you, but there are lots cheaper ways to do windows. It looks really nice when you do them like this, as punched instead of just solid front. These are pretty good. There's a lot of stonework, masonry on here that's the kind of thing we want to see more on the Town Suites building. Again, this is the kind of an elevation of the north and south, and you can see the entrance facility. This is the main entrance. The tallest point of this building is this three-story portion. That's the atrium as you enter. That's open to below, so that's just the main lobby is kind of a grand lobby. South elevation. This is a close-up of the entrance elevation that you can see the materials on. The fiber cement board, that's like the hardy plank. You have the stucco. You have some precast concrete cap over that stone veneer at the base. We like kind of the use of materials on this building better, and we'd like to see that mirrored more on the Town Suites building. We are recommending approval of the three components of this site plan. Those three components being, first, the site plan approval with these conditions, and the conditions are the same just for the public's benefit on all three recommended approvals. First for the site plan, second for the conditional use permit allowing the hotel use on that property, and third for the assisted living facility on this property as well. Any questions that you have for staff at this point?
Jared, I have a couple. One, I wonder why a condition of approval is that a traffic study be conducted, yet we're asked for all these approvals tonight when that traffic study has not been conducted yet, and that would have a tremendous potential impact on any decision.
Sure, and let me answer that for you the best that I can, and I'll let the applicant fill in the blanks a little bit. My understanding is that there is a traffic study that is completed. We are still analyzing that to make sure that it matches up, and they can provide all of the recommendations that mainly come from UDOT in this case. I'll get to the site plan real quickly, and we can look at that.
But we're still asked to make a decision without any information from that traffic study.
Yes, and the reason for that is that Trey Stokes, this city engineer, didn't see anything coming from the traffic study that wasn't already addressed in the UDOT access permit that was reviewed.
Okay, so he didn't see any initial red flags.
No, and I'll kind of show you why, and I should have talked about this in the presentation. I apologize, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Commissioner Markham. The UDOT has reviewed this and is required to because it's on State Street and because the access here on 53rd is within the certain distance of State Street. So both of those accesses proposed were reviewed by UDOT for a permit. UDOT's assessment was that they would not allow any left turn movements out of either of those or into either of those. So that the accesses to this site are limited to 1 and 2. Both of those are right in, right out only. And UDOT is also recommending, not as strongly as I understand, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, recommending this deceleration lane as you get to the right-hand turn to get people out of that traffic flow as they get into the site, for safety and to keep traffic moving to 50.
Can I ask you a question on the deceleration lane? So does that include the island staying in place that is currently there?
Island would stay in place.
Okay.
Okay, and then Jared, just one other question. What type of wall or fencing are we talking about on the east boundary of this development between this and the school property?
Between this and the school property. The only fencing, because there was some discussion of fencing, but we didn't place a requirement on the property because of the grade differential and change. There's some retaining walls that have to be put in if you look at the grading plan,
Okay.
the close-ups. There's a lot of retaining walls that have to be built, and we weren't sure that, and they'll be prohibitive for people coming onto the site. So for security, there wasn't really anything needed. They may elect to do something. We didn't see a need to require it as part of the development.
We don't think 13-year-old boys will try to climb a wall.
I think they'll give it every good
I
shot.
know they will give it every. I see
Probably want to fence
Jennifer
the bottom of
Covington
the
in the
wall.
back here. I see her shaking her head. She knows that they're going to try to do anything and everything they can get away with getting onto that property.
We didn't see a need to put a requirement in, but if the planning commission feels differently, we could have that assessed or looked at. It may be beneficial to fence. There's a fence on the school property further down between that and the athletic field in this area. So,
Well, I would assume there's going to be, a landscaping median or something, because they're not going to allow people to park right next to the edge of a retaining wall in that. So there will be.
There's a buffer.
Okay.
Can we actually go to the current site as it sits? Because the junior high school has a drop-off area that exists there with sidewalks that walk directly from the main building over to the subject property right there.
Yeah.
My concern is, while we've stated that the seminary has a potential development coming in the future, where it's being used currently,
Yeah.
I see every opportunity in the world for kids to use the quickest, easiest path to get there. And then once you're onto the site itself, there's not a good way to negotiate across the piece of property over to that seminary building. There's not a sidewalk in place. You're crossing multiple lanes of travel inside of the internal parking circulation. Is the internal parking circulation set as we see it here? This is what is proposed. This is what we should anticipate seeing.
That's what's proposed, and I would anticipate seeing it that way, barring some minor changes for pedestrian, with that pedestrian plan that we've asked for. However, and it's not part of this application, so I can't say too much about it, but the seminary building will not be remaining there long. There are plans to have it moved as soon as possible.
But it's fair to say it's being used this school year.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
We know.
I believe we do, and Jared, if you could go back to the site plan. And I could be wrong, but I believe there is some fencing associated with the assisted living facility.
There is some associated on the,
Pre-care and the assisted living, and they're probably going to do a solid type of vinyl type fencing. So that's something we can ask the applicant about.
Yeah.
If they just want to continue it along that property line.
At the very
Certainly something you can ask them.
at the very top of your illustration there, right at the south end of the hotel, is that turnaround area,
Right.
which it's really a very logical point to assume that the kids are going to use that if there's an opportunity, even if it's to sneak over and get a hamburger at lunch, even though they're not supposed to do that. I think the opportunity to.
it's a good point.
Okay.
When we didn't put anything in the requirements, it may be something we can ask the applicant to speak to and add something to the conditions.
And then my other concern, just with the vehicle flow pattern through there, is that at retail A, pad A, your only option is to do a right-hand turn and drive all the way around. It seems like it would make a lot more sense to have the ability to get to 53rd without having to drive all throughout that parking lot. There's quite a few wonky patterns that are dictated, honestly, by the design of not only the area, but just kind of the limitations of the parking itself. And so
a lot of that is also dictated because of the missing tooth here that drives a lot of that pattern, getting people around that and still maximizing parking to meet
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah.
And some of that may change slightly, but I
Right.
wouldn't expect a lot of change to it. It is a little difficult. But again, do keep in mind, though, too, that these pad sites especially, these are illustrative. There's
Sure.
just part of the
Nothing's
site plan, so we
proposed,
can
yep.
say that, you could do this and you could park a building like this and it would work. It could wind up being a smaller building to provide better access to a drive-through or what have you. We'd have to look at those individually as they come in.
Any other questions for
For staff.
staff while we have them up here? No?
Okay.
All right, thank you. If we could have the applicant come up, state your name and address for the record. Welcome, sorry to put you at the end of a busy agenda.
Ryan Kimball, 1000 South Main Street, Salt Lake City.
Okay, have you had an opportunity to review, I believe it's 8 conditions, is that correct? 8 conditions on all 3?
I have.
And you're able to comply with those 8 conditions? Do you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
Jared did a good job. There's a lot of information. The only thing I would add, I felt height was brought up, although we are well under. The Residence Inn is a 6-story hotel. This is a 4. There is no connection through Lot 5. So I know at one point people were thinking we were driving through to that road. We're not. And so that's cut off. The Town Place Suites hotel material is prototypical to Marriott. They're probably one of the most stringent hotel franchises to deal with. And so they care very much what their hotels look like. They want them to look the same throughout the country, wherever possible. So we'll take under consideration whatever you would like to do, but I would hate to, as a condition of approval, be forced to commit to a material type that I don't know if the franchise would allow.
And we've seen that with automobile dealerships as well. It's very similar.
True. And the traffic study that UDOT did, they said they didn't need the deceleration lane. Trey said he would still like it. We have no problem doing it. We looked at it on the site plan. Those are all my...
Isn't this hotel a Marriott product?
The Marriott Town Place Suites.
So if this is a Marriott product and that's a Marriott product across the street, I have
Different-
a hard time believing that they wouldn't be willing to put some masonry on the building or do some materials. If they really want to be there, I don't think they have a problem doing that.
Well, you may know that better than me.
And Jim, I mean, like, I travel a lot and stay in Marriott's a lot, and that's very similar to, I mean, it's a branding they have, and the brand that they have and the look and feel for a Town Place Suites is different from a Residence Inn, which is different from a Fairfield or a Courtyard or any of the other brands. I personally have no problem with the way that it looks because I understand that that's Marriott's brand, and I don't think it has to look like the Abington. I mean, Abington is more residential focus. The Town Place Suite have no problem with it and will be opposed to putting any conditions to the contrary.
Great comment. I don't think we're proposing that it has to look like it. It's kind of a transition, right? So you have this building in between the 2 buildings. So you have this big 6-story Residence Inn, and then you have this Town Place Suites, and then you have the Abington. So to me, this building's kind of a transition in between, so there should be similar components.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's a Marriott. They have branding. It's just like we talked about with the Acura dealers and all the other things that come through. They have a design standard that they need to meet too, and I think it's great. And it sounds like the applicant's willing to address and pass that on. But I think we need to be supportive of what what Marriott does. I mean, we know we need hotels here, and I think it's a fine development. So anyway, just my 2 bits.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for me?
Strategies for children, for 13-year-old boys.
It's an interesting conversation because, I mean, it really kind of ducktailed into the high school with the pedestrian bridge. It's not ours to control. It's one for safety. We definitely expect, as did staff, that they would patron the eating establishments. If the junior high is different, I know it's a closed campus, I would assume, at least mine was. And perhaps that's more of a question for the school district on how they want to contain the kids. But
shock collars.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Ankle bracelets.
But no, I mean, we want to make it safe, and maybe that's part of the pedestrian flow patterns that we'll analyze. That's the first I've heard of that, but it's not a bad concept. We all take shortcuts through places, and I would expect that to occur. And you know, I don't really know what else to say to that.
Yeah, and the assisted living facility, I guess the memory care's on that south end, right? And
Right.
and it's a lockdown unit. So
Yeah, it's controlled. That's the most controlled area.
okay. So there's limited ability to walk out of the building and end up on State Street in the deceleration lane.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that with Jim, and it's all contained.
I do like that you've included 2-bedroom units. I think that's a nice thing. Not everybody wants one, but the people that do have a hard time finding them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good thing. That's it for me. Does anybody else have anything?
I just, wish we could get the seminary building to be part of it. I mean, I know it's a separate application, but I look at this and I feel like, there's this glaring hole. And to Phil's point, I mean, it just feels like there's some information that we're missing that I wish we could. But I understand where we're at, but I hate seeing that as just, as it is. And I'm sure the applicant has probably tried and, to get that, but anyway, so.
It's controlled by separate contract.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. And, we don't
want to go there.
Anyway, so.
All right. Well,
Okay,
thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is public hearing, so we invite anyone and everyone to come on up, state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Bruce J. Udall, 319 Saunders Street. I think what it really boils down to, but what people talk about mostly is traffic here. You talk about traffic studies, I don't know if we can why is there not any public input on the traffic studies? First thing I'd like to know. But anyway, my concern here is the egress and the access to the hotel. I don't have any problems with the nursing home, where you want to call it, but coming in off 53rd, taking a left, they're trying to access it. You sweep over to the right, go past U-Haul, where there's 3, 4, who knows how many cars are going into their parking lot. Then you come in and you're going to go in the hotel and access it. I know it's bits and pieces here, but I'm trying to understand this retail A, 3,200 square feet. That's part of the hotel part. Is that correct?
Correct, and there's no access into that space outside of.
Okay, well, my question is they're going to they'll be maneuvering around here to get to that spot. Then they're going to drive back towards 5,300, and then they can only go right. Is that correct? They can only turn right. So how are they going to go back to? What if they want to get to the freeway? How are they going to access? They're going to go down go east half a block. They're going to go through that horrible intersection that's set up there. How are they going to access it? How are they going to get back to the freeway? That's what I want to know. I know we're second guessing. You talked that there's some traffic study involved, but I think that's a very Mickey Mouse process. I wasn't impressed with it when they put in the other hotel. I looked at that traffic study for the other Marriott. It was, I hate to say this, but I thought it was a FAR study, and I think this is going to be a FAR study too. There's so many problems there, so many access problems. They've told me that 5,300 in State Street is nearly #1 busy intersection in the state for city traffic. And I don't think that we're realizing what kind of traffic fiascos this is going to cause, this hotel. The other part's not going to be a problem. They're accessing over there off State Street, this and that. There's no problem there. But on this other side over here has a lot of problems. And we have to have a very lengthy discussion on traffic studies here. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is, and that's the issue. It's UDOT. U-turn Department of Transportation.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Erin Collins. I live at 314 East Hillside Drive. I would be the next door neighbor to all of this. Just to reiterate the traffic thing, it's funny that we all come up here complaining about traffic, but that's kind of where we live, is in our cars, traveling back and forth. So I think that's why it's important to us. Going into that assisted living, there's going to be ambulances that are going in and out. And if I remember correctly, there's berms I guess that's what you call it, in the middle of that State Street and also going that way. So even if they wanted to turn in, the only way that they'll be able to go back to the hospital or to come into this will be to flip a U-turn at 5460 South or also on 53rd South. And that already, those two streets are so busy. There are a lot of different reasons for that, one of them being the school. The 5460 South has a lot of overflow parking from the apartment buildings and also from the Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And then when they're lined up on that street, you then have school buses that are going up and down as well. And so thinking about adding in emergency vehicles and people who are trying to get back from the freeway, that seems like a lot. The only other thing is the Lot 5 future development. I know that that's something that you don't know yet about, but the way that this is built, that means the only access point is, again, that 5460 South, which means that you're adding even more traffic, whatever that's going to end up being, to that spot. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
I'm Craig Bevan. I have 7231 South, 1700 East. My concern is the grade change that's happened on this property. I think from staff's photos, they kept trying to show you where there was a grade change or a change in grade, not only from State Street down to the junior high, to the field, but the original and historical grade have been changed significantly. They may have been done by the school, and the applicant hasn't done them because they haven't done any work. But that grade has been changed 20 feet, and that's kind of a problem for me. I don't know that they should be allowed to change the grade that much higher than the original grade. I know it messes with their plans, but they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that and put that grade back to where it was, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Hello.
David Peden, 338 Hillside Drive. I have the same concerns as has been spoken as concerning the traffic as well, particularly going down 5300 South going east. It goes down to a one lane again, and people have no choice if there's only a right turn there just to go into those subdivisions to try to make their way through the subdivisions back over to State Street or somehow get back to the freeway. I drive that street. I drive the same street right there by the school, drop off every day, and it takes forever to get through there just to get onto State Street, to go down State Street to go to work. I think that I speak not only for those that have already spoken, there are many people in the neighborhood that I know and feel that I represent that have the same feeling about the traffic situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once. Going twice. Okay, close public comment. Staff. Mr. Hall. Sure. Could you kind of discuss traffic surveys in general, but I will start off by saying that Trey Stokes, the city engineer, he is methodical about traffic studies and tearing over them, and if he doesn't give us recommendations, it's usually for a good reason. But do you want to get into UDOT requirements and
part of the issue that you have here, 90% of the issue that you have here is that this is a UDOT controlled situation in its entirety. All of the access to this site was going to be dictated by UDOT, and how we got to use it. If the developer's able, they never choose a limited access over a full access. If they were able to do right-ins and left ins and left outs and right outs, they would absolutely do that. And so we recognize that puts constraints on the neighborhoods around it as well, but it also severely constrains a site and its function. The problem again too is that this is the question of putting traffic volume out onto State Street. I don't know how to address that other than to say there's not a street in the state. There's not a street in 3 states that can accommodate more traffic than State Street. It simply can't be designed to accommodate any more. So no traffic study was going to generate some change to State Street that would tell you what to do better there. Those intersections that are that busy, State Street, 5300 South, are failing currently, as has been noted, they're going to continue to fail until we have more people on transit. So I'll get that plug in as a planner, but that's the case. The issue was raised by the Planning Commission in the pre-meeting too, of the forced maneuvers after right-in, right-outs only, U-turns at different places and how you find your way back to get to the freeway. Mr. Udall mentioned, how do these folks get back to the freeway? Those turns have to be made, those maneuvers have to be made away from the intersection at 5300 South and State Street. That's what UDOT has determined, and we don't get to control that. Short of saying that the property cannot be developed, which we cannot do as a city as well. This is property that's allowed to be developed, and we have to accommodate that in some fashion. Wanted to speak to the grade change as much as I can. I'm not sure how we would re-implement the original grade at 20 feet lower without putting State Street on, if I'm understanding that comment correctly, without putting State Street on top of a 20-foot retaining wall, and I don't see that being feasible or happening.
And
I might be
we have
misunderstanding.
geotechnical will be involved in this.
Yeah, there's geotech reports there's soils reports already. There's a geotech report on the site. There's nothing significant to deal with there. Individual building permits will require soil
Your 3
tests.
minutes
You'll
are
see
up.
that in your
Sorry.
you'll see that in your staff report. Individual building permits are going to require soils reports for each building to be done, compaction reports, et cetera. So we don't see issues arising right now from those reports. If we do, those are dealt with in the permit phase. I'm trying to see it in my notes if there's anything else that I can speak to.
I have traffic, grade change, and traffic.
Traffic, grade change, traffic. And that is an issue, and I don't want to minimize that, but the traffic study doesn't give us any helpful suggestions beyond what's been done. Deceleration and limit the movements in and out of the site.
And this site has accommodated heavy traffic, right, during drop-off and pickup.
That was going to be my question, I guess, and just for clarification for myself, whatever gets developed on this parcel, this is what's proposed, but say, something doesn't work out and something else gets developed here, UDOT would have the same requirements, right? Like, no matter what goes in here, they're going to say on State Street, right in, right out, and on 53rd, right in, right out. It's not a component of what's being put on this property. It's the component of UDOT controlling these two very heavy thoroughfares.
There's no better way to say that. If it was a movie theater, if it was a series of
It would
restaurants, if it was a
they
shopping
would control
mall,
these entrances and exits
in the exact
same
same
way.
That's correct.
Jared, can I speak to this for a second? So I'm a traffic engineer also. So, and I'm a little concerned with people coming out of the north end and making a U-turn there and then going west or wanting to go north. But the traffic, or the way this is designed, the only traffic movement that you can't get to is a southbound movement without making a U-turn. So you come out on State Street and you weave into traffic and you can get back to the freeway, you can get to the hospital. But the movement that this doesn't allow you to do is to get out of this facility and go south. So, and that does it'll have some issues on traffic in the future to do U-turns and then make that south movement.
Sure.
And Jared, I thought, is the anticipated traffic for the assisted living going to be lighter than the hotel? I mean, does it make a difference if you swap them and you put the hotel closer to State Street? Because, I mean, I see the hotel coming on 53rd and them going in and more traffic coming in and out, whereas assisted living, or is there a way to put multiple entrances off I don't know. I mean, we all live here and we know that the traffic sucks here, and I hate it. I mean, Jared, you're like, yeah, this intersection fails, so let's just keep adding more cars to it, and until people decide to ride a bike, and that's cool. And we know that UDOT controls this whole thing, and so there's really not much we can do, but are there some things we can do based on the use to try to direct more traffic to the State Street entrance that would seem to accommodate that better than the one on 53rd.
That's a really good point and a really good question, actually. I think to Ned's point, to kind of connect the two, the best thing you can do is have the sites interconnected. If this were being developed as two sites, if they had two different users and the town place suites were not willing to share access agreements, like we're not being able to get them on the seminary site, for example, if that were the issue, that would be suggesting that they be forced to share accesses so that you can get people from getting into town place isn't going to be too terrible. Right. As people see it and see, oh, this is my destination, they make a right in, and that's kind of the thinking. They'll make a right into that, and then when they need to go back toward, I don't know why that's doing that tonight, it's going to drive me nuts.
It's only doing that for you.
When they need, it's just me. When they need to get back northbound again to the hospital, to the freeway entrance, et cetera, they're going to go through the site because they're able to.
Right.
If they weren't connected, we'd be suggesting that, and a traffic study would suggest that. It's not an issue because they are connected and they are sharing accesses.
Right.
I don't know that it makes a difference to put the town center on one side or the town suites on the north end or the south end instead. I think it's largely a function of the pedestrian bridge landing and the space that each one needs and the shape of the property.
So what we're going to see is we're going to see the majority of the people are going to go east on 53rd, enter into by the town place, do their business, and then they're going to go up by the Abington and then leave
Back
out
out
that
on the
way.
street.
And then per Ned's comment, you can essentially make your way over and go back to the freeway. So we're going to. So I think, not only the internal flow of the people is important, but that traffic as
Absolutely.
well is critical because it's essentially a small road that people are going to need to be able to have that flow from 53rd. And even if you're going to Abington and you're coming off the freeway to visit Grandma, I mean, you're going to go through and enter that way because otherwise you have to turn right on State Street and then flip a U-turn.
You have to turn around somewhere in Midvale.
Right. Yeah. I mean, UDOT loves to make it so people have to do U-turns. That's what the U stands for, I'm sure, is U-turn, Department of Transportation. But, but again, they control the roads, so it is what it is.
It kind of is. And the interconnection is important, and it's a good point. The vehicle connection and the vehicle interaction on the site with the pedestrians is critical.
Right.
That really is the only solution to getting back out onto State Street to be able to do something, is to direct them southbound through that site.
Yep, it is.
I just wanted to mention something briefly, and thank you, Jared. Ned and I were talking a little bit too, and I think by flipping those uses either north and south, it's probably a wash. I don't anticipate that either would alleviate more than the other. But here's the thing: we're going to get people coming potentially to a hotel site. But when you've dealt with, and I've seen a number of them. When I worked in Sandy City, we had a number of assisted living and memory care facilities come in, and they get traffic too. There's a lot of service staff there. There's a lot of visitors. Some of the people that live in the assisted living, you have one, you might have a couple and one of them still gets around pretty good and they have an automobile and the other one doesn't. So that's why they're living there. Memory care, dementia, no. Alzheimer's, no. But I think, I think it's a good layout. It's a tough site. We are excited, and I'm just gonna say it. It's exciting to see uses like this, kind of a mix of uses come to our city. I can tell you what wanted to go there, more car lots, right? I mean, that, and I think we have our fill. We have enough.
Yeah, we got
so
enough.
It's exciting to see an assisted living facility, another component of residential in our city. For people that live here, that want to stay and want to remain in Murray City, they can. They can live right there. They don't have to go to another city to go to an assisted living facility. So it's filling a niche. The hotel, the potential for an eatery, the potential for some office or retail, on that other 6,000 square foot building. These are good uses. They're a good mix of uses that we'd like to see for our residents here in Murray City. So we like what we see. We understand that there's pros and cons with everything. It's tough. I like this area, and I'll say, and you can tell, I grew up in Southern California. I like Carl's Jr., so I drive down 53rd. I go to Carl's Jr., okay? I like Rubio's. I like Jersey Mike's. Okay, so I frequent this area more than I should. But a night like tonight, a day like today, I went and got lunch because I'm not getting dinner, right? So I went and
You're
got
welcome.
something to eat. Thank you. And that's good.
Should've brought
That's
you some
fine.
lunch.
I could fast for months. Anyways, what I'm saying is it's tough. And I drive down 53rd a few times a week to this area. If it's not Costco, it's somewhere to eat. It's some of our projects in certain neighborhoods that have caused a stir. I just like to get out and look at things and see how things are going. But every time I go down 53rd and I'm going to this site and I make the left-hand turn into that center to Zao or, Carl's or whatever I pick that day, yeah, it is what it is. The cars merge, and I'm in a truck, and I'm not racing anybody. I just take my time, and the guys in their little hot rods pass me and go up 53rd. Is what it is. So I think we all have to be patient. It's kind of the hand we've been dealt, and it's a Wasatch front-wide dilemma and situation. Every city's dealing with this, and it's tough, and we have a lot of growth and more to come. So,
Thank you. Additional conversation up here.
Yeah, I was just say, I think it really is a great project, and that's my thing. I just make sure we focus a little bit more on, the car traffic flow as well as the people within the development. That's it.
I agree.
So,
I just got a little question about access from the junior high to the seminary. I'm wondering if we need to address making sure that that access is maintained during the construction process in a safe manner so that those kids are getting from the junior high to the seminary for as long as it's in use.
they walk on the sidewalk.
I was going to say, I don't know if they're allowed to go across that field.
I'm sure they do, but they're probably not supposed
Probably
to.
not allowed.
What is
They're
what
not
is the
supposed
current
to.
what's the current
I'm just
pathway
watching
to
you
the
the whole
seminary?
time. This is kind of what I
I
see.
don't know what the current pathway to the seminary is. The school district will still own this property. It'll be leased, and there'll be some things that go along with that lease that I'm not aware of, but I'm sure that'll have to be worked out between the school district. It is just me.
I guess
School
it-
district and the seminary.
Yeah, so honestly, in reality, the school district does maintain control over this property, and if they feel they have to put in some mitigation
So, and I do know
tools,
they are working hard to get it moved. The church and the school, in conjunction with another developer, are working hard to get this seminary building relocated as soon as possible. So that's the plan.
But I'm just looking at, in the meantime,
Yeah, and it's not. You have to realize too that the construction of a seminary building is not like any of these things. You could have a building like that up in 60 days. So it's probably doable, and I've seen the plans for where it's not. I can't say because it's not my place, but I've seen the plans for where they want to put it, and I know they control that property, and it'll be moved soon. I wouldn't expect it to be an issue during the next school year at all, just based on what I know from the site plan.
thank you.
You bet.
My only discussion is, I'm so happy to see the assisted living. I know we've been trying for a long time to get this in Murray. More units like this. We need more of these facilities. And this one looks so nice to be right. I mean, a lot of people, when they come into Murray, they come in on 53rd, and so this is going to be a really, really nice development. Even if access isn't perfect, I'm glad to see this going in on this site. This is going to be a great use for it.
It's a phenomenal long-term.
It is. It's
Agreed.
very, very, very nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of two extended stays.
Well, we can keep discussing, or we can entertain motions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the Murray Hillcrest site plan, that we approve a site plan allowing shared parking for the proposed Murray Hillcrest development on the property addressed 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 8.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a site plan allowing shared parking for the proposed Murray Hillcrest development on the property address 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 8. I have a second.
I'll second.
A second by Mrs. Wilson. Call for a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. The first motion carries. We now can have a discussion and/or a motion for the conditional use permit for a new hotel.
Make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit to allow a new hotel, LU number 5510, on the property located at 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 8.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Woodbury to approve a conditional use permit to allow a new hotel land use, 5510, on the property located at 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Markham. Call for a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, that motion carries. Then, discussion and/or a motion to approve a conditional use permit for assisted living facility.
I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow a new assisted living facility, LU number 6516.1, on the property located at 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 11? 8. Excuse me, conditions 1 through 8.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Wilson to approve a conditional use permit to allow a new assisted living facility, land use 6516.1, on the property located at 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 8. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mrs. Milkevich. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, and that motion carries. Item number 14 this evening is dealing with the same property. It's the Abington subdivision, 5-lot commercial subdivision, the property address 126 East, 5300 South.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
This is the same property we've been discussing for a while, so I won't bore you with the details. I did show you during the discussion of the site plan, the different lots and the way they laid out, so I'll just go over that really quickly. The first lot here, lot number 1, is located to accommodate the Town Suites, the proposed Town Suites Hotel. Lot 2 is the retail pad. Lot 3, the other retail pad for the 6,000 square foot building. Lot 4 is the Abington subdivision, is the Abington assisted living facility. And Lot 5 again is that parcel that can't be developed as a part of these other, in conjunction with these other lots. That's the way the lots break down. You can see they do all share access and parking agreements that's required for this subdivision. And the grading and utility plans and all of those are in place. The city engineers reviewed those. And we have recommended approval for the Planning Commission to grant preliminary subdivision approval and forward recommendation of final to the mayor's office with these 9 conditions that you see listed. Any questions for staff?
Can we go back to the layout? The easement there, that's accommodating old school, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so those will be vacated or maintained?
I don't know if they're vacated or maintained in this. I apologize.
Sorry, that was my only question. Any additional
That's a good
questions?
question. They
Kind of don't go to anything anymore, right?
don't. My guess is that those easements would be vacated as a part of this subdivision.
And that is something that the city engineering staff would go through.
Right.
In preparation for a Mylar. All of that would be addressed with them before a Mylar was submitted, before a plat could be recorded.
That would be part of that preparation for final review, so that we have all those things kind of buttoned up before it gets recorded.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Nope. All right.
Just one final note, just to make sure it's clear. This would still remain school district land. These lots would all be in Murray School District ownership, and the lease just covers all the lots.
Sure.
Jared, a question, just a curious question with regard to that. Then the school district owns the property. There is no property tax paid on this development?
The school district still owns the property. It will generate sales tax. I don't know the answer to that question. If the change of use on it generates property tax.
Because, we've had discussion in our meetings about the rather large percentage of Murray City property that does not generate any property tax.
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer, because I haven't dealt with this as a specific instance before, but I can find out and let you know. No idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love follow up
I
on
want
that.
a car dealership.
Same problem.
That's true. That's true.
All right, if we could have the applicant come back up one more time. And again, we'll have you state your name and address for the record.
Ryan Kimball, 1000 South Main Street, Salt Lake City.
All right, Mr. Kimball, you have 9 different conditions. You'll be able to meet these conditions and comply? Okay. Anything you'd like to add to this?
No.
Okay.
Unless you have
Okay.
more
Any questions for the applicant?
No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, again, there's public comment period, so if anyone would like to speak to the subdivision proper, please come on up. State your name and address for the record. Welcome back.
Sorry, got to go again. My name's Craig Bevan, 7231 South, 1700 East. I don't think I was clear about why I cared about the grade, But I do want to see if, before we make this lot changes, you understand why. I own the property just south of Lot 4. There's a 10-foot retaining wall. They've then put 20 feet of dirt on top of that, and then they're going to put a 35-foot building on top of that. They're going to be 60 feet above my parking lot. And they're going to be very close. I'm in a conditional use, but I'm a conditional use residential. It's not zoned residential. It may not fall within the staff's purview of saying it is, but I'm a conditional use residential. 60 feet, they're going to have to be far away from my property line, or they're not going to be able to make it. I would be interested to hear what staff thinks on whether or not my conditional use residential counts as residential or if it does not.
Okay, we'll have them address that. Anybody else? I'll have you up after we're done with the comment period. Okay. Seeing nobody else wishing to speak to the public or any more public comment, we'll close public comment. We'll have the applicant come back up, and then we'll have staff also come up.
So, yeah, I appreciate the clarification. That helps me a lot. I'm sorry, did you ask the applicant first?
Yeah, but if
I hate when I butt in line like that. Sorry, I was thinking. So I appreciate the clarification. So the height issue at the north end, we did talk about height allowances in the CD zone. This is property. The height requirement is from residential zoning, not residential uses. The height allowance, the way it's written in CD zoning, is for residential zones, not for residential uses. I assume we're talking about the apartments that are here on the north and south end. Sorry, I always do that too. But that's, yeah, we measured that. That was part of our analysis. The heights are still well within the limits that are allowed based on the way our zoning code is written. I don't doubt the height differential and the concern there. The building is a two-story building. It's set back from that area a bit with some landscaping between. It does meet the requirements of the zoning.
Okay, sorry.
It's a non-conforming use. They're legal
Correct.
apartments, legal non-conforming.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that those apartments are zoned commercial?
Yes.
They're zoned commercial, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I should have been more
No,
clear about
sorry,
it.
And then we'll welcome Mr. Kimball back.
So I'm not going to pretend to be a civil engineer and speak to all the grading problems or issues that we'll be addressing, but the fill that was left there that's currently placed, we will be relocating that in several different areas. There's not a lot of export, but right now there's a grade off of the sidewalk heading east that's noticeable, especially on the south end. And that grade will be evened out. There is a plan on the east side of the property to put a retaining wall and to use the side of the wall on the east to accommodate some of the dirt that we would otherwise have to be removing from the site. So we had to get a little bit creative on how to get rid of that dirt. It was an expensive part of the development costs. You know, I mean, in upwards of about $700,000 to remove all that dirt. So we figured out a way to keep it on site, but it will not look and feel the same way it does today. It will be less.
So your overall elevation in that area, your grade will be decreased.
The grade will be decreased, and it's easier to see on site when you're on the sidewalk. There's a mound, and that mound is going to be graded out at a slope that if you look at the grading plan in more detail, you'd be able to notice. But I don't know if I really answered your question, because I can't speak to it as educatedly as our civil engineer who designed it. But I do know that it was of great concern to us initially, and we did solve for that.
So, if I understand the question from the public, already there's a 10-foot retaining wall in place.
I don't know that, but
so,
okay.
What the retaining wall you're putting in place? Approximate height of that?
You know, I on the east side of the Abington, I'm not quite sure. It could be 15 feet.
15 feet. Okay.
And you know, so when you say like boys or girls will try to climb that, that's going to be fun to watch. But I don't know how. But that's pulled to the inside of our property, and the balance of the property to the east of that wall would be where some dirt field could be placed, and which would alleviate the height of the current grade.
Okay. Any additional questions to that? Okay. I think we're good.
Thank you.
Staff, anything else you want to add to it? Are you good with that? Okay. All right. Back up here for discussion and/or motions.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we grant preliminary subdivision approval and forward a recommendation of final approval to the mayor's office for the proposed Abington subdivision located on the property addressed 126 East, 5300 South, subject to the 9 conditions in this report.
All right, I have a motion by Mrs. Patterson to grant preliminary subdivision approval and forward a recommendation of final approval to the mayor's office for the proposed Abington subdivision located on the property address 126 East, 5300 South, subject to conditions 1 through 9. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Woodbury. Call for a vote, please.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
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 Yes, that motion carries. Good luck with your development. Sounds like you've got a lot of work ahead of you, and welcome to Murray again. All right. Any additional information for us, Mr. McNulty?
Thank you. Just very quickly, our next meeting's in 2 weeks on September 20th. You probably saw the agenda that came out. It's
robust.
Pretty robust and lengthy, like tonight's, but I have to commend the Planning Commission for doing a really good job getting through the items this evening. But we have another long planning agenda in 2 weeks. At the tail end of that, we want to kind of show you the draft sign stuff that we've come up with, that we've been talking about, that we've been delayed on.
It's always a great way to end the evening.
Yeah. Can we put it on an A-frame when you show it?
We could. But we have some fun graphics to show you, and we want to let you see the difference between the old and the new. And then we'll be moving forward with that. Also, there's an opportunity that's come out, and we may or may not have talked about this previously, but we do have Commissioner Mukavich and Ney going to the APA conference. Is it 4th and 5th of October? But there's a keynote speaker that's going to be in town talking about the hidden cost of free parking. His name is Donald Shoup, and the quote here is, "It's unfair to have cities where parking is free for cars and housing is expensive for people." And so there's an opportunity on Thursday of that week, while the conference is going on, for the rest of us that aren't there. There's a luncheon from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So lunch will be provided, and this individual, who's a professor from UCLA, will be addressing those with interest. So I have a handout that I was going to give to each of you. Lisa and Travis, I wouldn't worry. He's going to have a session. He's going to talk to the group at the APA conference.
But is he going to feed me?
Well, they will feed you.
I
They'll
know,
feed you
I
lunch.
know.
I think lunch comes both days, Thursday and Friday. So I just wanted to give that to you. Is everyone going to be here? Commissioner Hacker will be out of town on the 20th. Anyone else? Could they tell us?
I'll be here.
Commissioner Woodbury, I'm going to come to you
row.
first. Will you be in attendance on the 20th?
He'll be here.
I will be here on the 20th. I just changed
Okay.
my flight today to come back just for you.
Thank you.
Aw.
Thank you.
Actually,
Others?
Yeah.
Will we have other? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
I'm
have.
hoping to be here,
I need
but
an
I
air design.
Okay.
need a little wiggle room.
Okay. Well, sounds like we'll have 5, maybe 6, so we'll be good. But plan on a 9 to 10 o'clock meeting. Thank you. That's all we have for tonight,
Can we
unless
assign
Jared has
treats
other
to
things.
someone to bring, like the soccer?
Their halftime plan?
Motion to adjourn.
Rice Krispie
Second.
treats.
I guess that's it. We're done.